What is happening today, my Moore Squad? We are back with episode 8 of Talk More Sports, hosted by me, your main man, Hudson Moore. All right, y'all, to my track and field community, it's Mr. Moore on track reporting to you that we have a little bit of financial trouble going on in the world of Grand Slam for track and field, right? We're having a bit of a cash flow issue going on. It's been reported that Grand Slam track has faced a huge financial hurdle after a major investor backed out, leaving the league $13 plus million, right? 13 plus behind on athlete payments and vendor bills, right? Founder Michael Johnson says that he's still working hard to make things right and return stronger for the 2026 season. And also, one little other fact too, actually that just happened just 2 days ago, right? 2 days ago, Grand Slam reported on missing out their first fine of rental fee at the Aspen Sports Complex back in the Miami Grand Slam, which was supposed to be $30,000 and that's just raised up to $77,000 of late fee. So, this was the first season debut of the Grand Slam track, right? It was exciting. Everybody in the track and world community was so excited about it. I know I was, being a former sprinter at Central Washington University. I was so excited. I just couldn't believe that they're finally going to put recognition on these athletes, give them the money, give them the band they've been deserving for so long. But after the cancellation of the Los Angeles Grand Slam, which was going to be the final meet of the season debut, they canceled it due to money issues and cash flow, and now you're 13 million plus behind on paying your vendor bills and athletes who have won the Grand Slam. So, do I think that Michael Johnson had the best intentions? Absolutely. He's one of the greatest sprinters of all time. Former world record holder, one of the greatest 2/400 meter sprinters of all time. I think his idea and his vision was amazing. I love the idea he had, right? It was a good one. But you got to get your money right. You got to pay your bills. You got to pay the rent. You got to pay these athletes. You got to make sure you have investors and sponsors who are willing to work with you and pay these athletes some money and help out with rents on these complexes that we're competing in. Now, obviously, this was the first season, right? There's obviously going to be some mistakes happening, right? Not everything's going to go smooth as we all hope it would be, just because, it's a brand new thing. It's new to everybody. And even to us watching it, we had to watch it on Peacock. And I'm not the biggest fan of that, right? My issues when it comes to paying to watch track and field is I love the sport. I ran this sport. So I would gladly pay for it. But when you have it streaming on Peacock, where not everybody has Peacock, where it's like, well, maybe let's get some TV right deals, right? I know obviously it's not the USA Championships, it's not the World Championships. I understand that. But in order for the sport to grow, let's have it on some streaming service like maybe like ABC, NBC, maybe an ESPN channel, just something where everybody can watch for free. Because in the sport of track and field, right, it's not the most popular here in America. We all know that, but it's very popular in Europe, Jamaica. They would all gladly pay for it. I'm sure they would. But here in America, it's not like football or basketball. So first, we got to make sure we let everybody know in the world, especially here in the USA, that they can watch it for free and not actually have to pay for it. Because not a lot of people are going to pay for something that they don't like to watch, and that's just a fact. If I didn't run the sport, I would never want to pay to watch it. Never. I would probably just wait until it's free. So that's also one thing I think they have to fix for next season if they can bounce back from this, right? If they can have it being on a streaming service where most people either have it already or don't have to pay at all. Because first, you want to grow the audience, you want to grow the viewerships, right? And once you do, then you can start adding it on to Hulu, Peacock. You know what I mean? Just examples of wherever you just want them to pay for. So that's just more money, more revenue just pouring into the season and into the competition. So with this Grand Slam issue happening, with all this cash flow, the biggest question is how they bounce back from this. Because I'm really hoping this continues. And I think another big way to grow this is to have more meets. I had a big issue with having only 4 meets, right? And they're spread out almost 3.5 to 4 weeks. That's so long. I mean, for 4 meets, that is so long. I would rather have it be either every other week or every 2 weeks because I'm sure, because also I get it. you want to have it be a global thing, not just a national. So that's what we had in Jamaica. So I'm sure eventually you want to have it somewhere in Europe, South America, maybe a couple more here in the States. Totally, I completely understand that, and that probably will take a lot more time too, depending on the renter's fee, all that stuff, having to pay your bills, more money, more cash flow. I get that. I completely understand that. But for my personal opinion, I think the best way to grow it is to have more meets. Maybe have it 6 meets, maybe 8. Because I'm sure you'll get a lot of athletes who want to compete. Because also, it's 100 grand they're winning. You really don't think they want to compete a little bit more to make a little bit more extra money? I mean, because for example, Kung Fu Kenny, he took every single Grand Slam title, so he got an extra 300 grand in his pockets. You don't think he wants to race for a little bit more? You think he doesn't want to race for maybe 6, 800? You know, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, but at the same time, though, let's put a little bit more money, let's put a little bit more meat into the process. Let's just not have it for, because that's just a long time waiting. Because actually, believe it or not, a few times I almost forgot that there even was a Grand Slam happening because it just be such a long period in between each meet. And I get it. Moving around different nations and states, it takes a lot of money, moving, athletes committing to going from one place to another. I completely understand that. And it's fair. It is a fair thing to suggest. You have to be in the best interest for the athletes and also for the investors and sponsors where they're advocating. But in the end, this whole issue, I hope the athletes get paid, right? That's the number one thing. You need to make sure these athletes get paid. Because think of it, they're taking time out of their season of other big competitions they could be competing in, training time, right? In hopes to get an extra 100 grand bad with them, right? They're hoping to get an extra 100 grand with them in their pockets, hopefully. And so if you're not paying these athletes, I would be pissed off. I mean, for real. It would be so annoying the fact that I literally had to go to Jamaica, Miami, Philly, and obviously not LA, but let's just say hypothetically, they went to LA, right? And I'm finding out I don't get all the money. Let's just say I won all 4 Grand Slams. I got an extra 400 grand in my pockets. Boom. Oh, nope, sorry guys. We can't give you the money. So you're telling me I took all this time out of my training, going to other meets, maybe spending time with family and friends to go over the nation and overseas to not get the money that I rightfully deserved because I won. And so that's the biggest problem. And because also that was the whole vision of Michael Johnson, right? That was his whole idea to give these athletes the money they are well deserved of. That was the number one idea why. To give these athletes the money. Now, obviously, to grow the sport, of course, especially here in America, because that's why we had 3 out of the 4 meets here in the States to obviously grow it national wise. But at the same time, though, you want these athletes to get money because they're not getting that whole lot. They're really not. I mean, there's so many athletes who are having to work an actual job just to pay the simple bills. Because if you're not in the top 10%, as everybody knows in track and field, you're not going to get that money. You're not. If you're not a world record holder, Olympic, world champ, or at least you're a consistent great athlete in your event, you're just not going to get the money. So you probably have to get a job or two, unfortunately. So I really do hope they bounce back from this. But first, you got to pay these athletes. Like, yes, I know you got to pay the renter's fee. I get that. You got to pay that. Make sure you don't behind that because the bills will stack up. Obviously, because when the Miami complex it went from $30,000 to $77,000, like, oh my god. So yes, obviously, you got to pay the bills, but first pay these athletes, right? Because these are the athletes. These are what we actually came to watch. The athletes. So if you can pay these athletes first and then your bills, good. And make sure you get your sponsors and investors right because you need to make sure you have people who are committed investing in money into the sport because that's what we want to do. We want to grow the sport. Again, the vision of Michael Johnson is great. I love what he's trying to do. But first, you got to get your crap straight. You just have to. Everything. Paying the athletes, make sure you have the sponsorships, paying your bills on time, paying the renter's fee, everything. You got to make sure you pay all that. And then hopefully, maybe, just maybe, you can really grow the sport into something big and phenomenal. And I'm sure they can. I'm sure they will one day if they get all this stuff, all this little crap figured out. So let's kind of move away from that. And let's go into some other things. So, as reported from this past week, Cindy Mclaughlin, the 400-meter hurdle queen, will just be competing in the open women's 400 at the USA Championships. See, this is interesting. Her best time in the 400 is a 48.74. The American women's record is 48.7. So you're point 0.4 off from breaking, or at least tying, the women's American record, right? And point 0.5 from breaking it. Can she? Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I'll tell you this: she can even break that world record in that 47. She can break that 47 potentially. I truly believe she can break 47 one day if she can stay committed to it. Because we look at what she did in last year in the 2024 season, leading up to the Paris Olympics. It seemed like she was committed to running the 400. I'm looking at her; she just looks so smooth. The stride length was there. Like she just, it had everything it needed for her to break it, or at least be competing for a gold medal. And unfortunately, she backed out of it. She was saying she was using more for her training, which I totally get, and maybe that's what she's doing for the USA Championships. But with her actually competing in the USA Championships, now there's like a potential like you could break the American record and now actually have a spot in two single events, both in the 400 hurdles and the open 400. So it's kind of interesting to see how this all will play out. I hope she breaks the American record, and I hope if she actually does and takes a spot, which I'm sure she will, in the women's 400 meter open, hopefully she can maybe compete for a gold medal. Because again, she is the queen of the 400 meter hurdles. She is. She's not even the GOAT. She's just the queen. She is the godly queen of the women's 400 meter hurdles. She's already the best all time, and she's only 25 years old, and you are the best at what you do already, which is crazy. Same thing like Mondo Duplessis, of Sweden, for pole vault. He is 26 years old, and Cindy is 25. These guys are the best at such a young, before even the age of 28. They are the best at what they do. So for Sydney to now maybe change it up a bit, go into women's 400 meter, because I was a big advocate for her doing it last year going up to the Paris Olympics. I was really hoping she would compete in the 400 meters just for fun, just to actually see where she is with all those great open women 400 meter runners. So with her being the USA Championships, I think that's a great idea, and I cannot wait to see what happens. But as we kind of move from the women's 400, we kind of move into the men's 400 as Quincy Hall, the reigning Olympic champion, has scratched out of the USA Championships due to injuries. It's unfortunate because we all remember what he did in last year's Paris Olympics, right? That amazing hawk down he had on Matthew Hudson in that men's 400-meter gold race. We all remember that. I mean, we looked at that dude. He didn't look like he was even going to medal at one point, but he just digged. He digged. He digged. He just dug like a dog. And he got that gold over the heavily favored Matthew Hudson, who I love, by the way, which was still a shocker to me till this day. I'm like, how did on earth did he do that? I mean, how did he do that? Insane. So for Quincy Hall not to come out, again, injuries, I completely understand. It's just heartbreaking to me because I love Quincy Hall. I mean, he's really representing the men's 400 meter on the American side with such grace and such determination and heart, and I love it. And it's unfortunate that we won't get to see him become or have a chance to compete to become the world champion. Now that you're the Olympic champion, you now want that world title. Everybody does. So it's unfortunate, but we still have a heavily stacked of men 400 meters in the American side who can definitely compete for gold. Not to mention, the 17, phenom Quincy Wilson, but Quincy Hall is still the Olympic champion, but it's unfortunate. I really hope he for a speedy recovery, and I'm sure he'll be back better and stronger and faster than ever. And to kind of end off on today's show, we had a little bit of news. So, Dillon Mitchell, at 16 years old, has broken the 16-year-old USA record of 10-3-4. 10-3-4, you're 16, right? Where are these kids coming from? It's insane to me. I mean, you're 16, you run a 10-3. A 10-3. You are 16 years old, my dude. You're nowhere near your prime yet, and you're running a 10-3. I would do anything to run a 10-3 back in my days from sprinting. A 10-3 is crazy, and at 16 years old, right? I mean, again, these kids in high school, man, are running sub 10s and sub 20s like they're nothing, especially here in the States. I mean, seriously, it's insane. We had a couple overseas as well, like in Australia, Jamaica, Europe. But for here in the USA, we know how much serious we take sprinting. We take it very seriously. And this kid, 16, running a 10-3 is amazing. It's going to be exciting to see what he does possibly in 3 years, right? When he's 19, maybe he could be competing at the Olympic trials for LA. I don't think he would make it because I mean, there's a big stack of men 100 meters right in front of him, but you never know. Anything could happen. What if he possibly runs a sub 10 next year as a junior? Or maybe even that when he's a senior. I mean, the sky's the limit for this kid now that you run a 10.3 at 16 years old. So, I mean, big shout out to Dillon Mitchell running a 10.34 at 16 years old, breaking the USA record. Amazing. Phenomenal. I cannot wait to see what this kid does in 3 years. Hopefully, we'll see him at the U.S. Olympic trials. That would be fun to watch. I want to thank to everybody listening out there. Make sure you comment down below what you think about the Grand Slam and their money issues. Comment down below what you think about Cindy McLaughlin. Could she break the women's American 400-meter record, right? Like and subscribe. We'll be here every Friday, Saturday, Monday. Stay tuned for tomorrow's show. And with that being said, we'll be back with more.